Biden has said that the sanctions will remain in place as long as Russia is in Ukraine. Russia's not leaving Ukraine ever. So that means that the sanctions will be in place forever. Now, that's not literally true, but this could go on for a very long period of time. This could go on for years. Europe made a lot of bets in the spring of 2022 that the war would be over in 6 months. So we don't really have to worry about the winter of 2023 because it'll be over by the fall. Well, fall's come and gone, winter's here. So that was a bad bet. And now Europe's back is to the wall from an energy perspective. But everything's going to get worse. Now, the sanctions, I teach financial warfare at the U.S. Army War College. I teach a seminar in the Advanced Strategic Arts program. My class, very small group, 12, 13 participants, seminar style, mid-career officers, all branches. It's at the U.S. Army War College. And in my last class, I had a Navy commander, an Air Force fighter pilot, a couple of Marine lieutenant colonels, an Army colonel. But these are the top mid-career people handpicked. They're the future four-star generals, the future national security advisors. And they go through this class, and as I say, I teach the financial warfare module. And I told them, the last time I did this was early April, and I told them, I said, these sanctions are not going to work. The people in charge, specifically Yellen, but also Wally Adeyemo, the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, he's like the Sanctions King. So they're not going to work. These people do not understand economics. They do not understand global markets. They know how to slap on sanctions. They're good at that. They have the law behind them. But not only will they not work, they'll backfire. They'll hurt the United States and Europe more than they hurt Russia. It's played out exactly as I told the class in April. Russia has barely suffered. Remember Biden was going to destroy the Russian ruble. Well, the Russian ruble did dip and then bounced right back. And today it's stronger. The Russian ruble is stronger measured in U.S. dollars than it was before the war. It was so strong that Elvira Nabiullina, who's the head of the Central Bank of Russia, recently had to cut interest rates, not raise them, but cut them, because she was worried that the ruble was getting too strong. So much for that idea. Russian energy sales are increasing. They're above 2021 levels. Whatever Europe doesn't want to buy, China and India will buy. Yeah, there's some discounts, and revenue takes a little bit of a hit, and there's some transportation logistics, and had to jump through a couple insurance hoops. But all these things, they're easy to get around if you know anything about insurance. You just have a captive insurance company, or you self-insure, or find someone who will. But you'll end up destroying Lloyd's of London before you destroy Russian oil exports, and that's kind of the point. Oligarchs have they lost townhouses in Belgravia and yachts? Yeah, they have. But what the Americans don't understand is that Putin hates the oligarchs. Putin should send a handwritten thank you note to Biden and say, thank you for destroying the oligarchs. Putin wouldn't do it himself. What he did, he put a few of them in jail, Khodorkovsky and others, and said, you can keep your billions of dollars, but don't mess in politics. That was the message. The oligarchs got the message, had their townhouses and their yachts, but didn't interfere in politics. But Putin actually wanted to get rid of them if he could. He just couldn't. They did have some power in the system. And there's a lot of corruption in Russia, obviously, it goes without saying. But now the U.S. is destroying the oligarchs for him. So again, Putin's very grateful. Putin's sources of strength, by the way, are the military, the intelligence community, the Orthodox Church, and everyday Russians. Those are the pillars of his strength, not oligarchs. That base, military intelligence, Orthodox Church, and everyday Russians is as strong as ever. Putin's position is secure. Meanwhile, what's going on in the West? Energy prices are skyrocketing. Economies are heading into recession. Germans will be sleeping in sleeping bags this winter and worse. And by the way, Russia hasn't even come close to applying maximum pressure. Obviously, it's tragic. There's some civilian casualties. Russia is systematically degrading the infrastructure of Ukraine, but there's a lot more they can do. So the U.S. has overused its sanctions. Typical U.S. eggheads, they know economic theory, they know the law, they know sanctions. They don't understand how economies actually work and how this is all backfired to the detriment of the West, and it's going to get worse. Let me pivot now to the evolution of the international monetary system, because that's related to the topic. You hear a lot about the Great Reset, the demise of the dollar. The dollar will be overthrown as a global reserve currency. New things are coming, and people throw in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies or whatever for good measure. Some of that's going on, some of it's not. In analyzing this, you have to distinguish between the role of a reserve currency and a payment currency. They're two different things. The U.S. is about 60%, actually 59% right now of global reserves. Now that is down. In 2000, that number was about 70%. Now it's 59%. So that's a significant drop, but it's still dominant. But the euro is about 30%. So the US dollar and the euro combined are almost 90%, not quite, of global reserves. Everybody else has a slice. So, Australia, Canada, sterling, yen, Chinese yuan, they all have a little slice, but they're all kind of squished into that 10% wedge. It's really the US dollar and the euro and predominantly the US dollar. And by the way, when we say the global reserve currency, that it's not really a currency. And here's what I mean. It's not as if the People's Bank of China has $1 trillion in $100 bills stacked on pallets in the basement of the building, basement of their headquarters. It's not actually, you don't actually have the currency. You have securities denominated in the currency. So China does have over $1 trillion of U.S. Treasury bills, notes, and bonds, but they don't actually have dollars the way you would have it in a bank account. They have securities. So the key to reserve currency status is partly the currency. It's based on the currency, but it's your securities market. Do you have a big, liquid, well-regulated, well-supported securities market big enough to hold the reserves? And that's what makes the dollar the top reserve currency. The U.S. Treasury market, there's nothing like it in the world. It's the biggest by far. It's the most liquid. What are the chances that some other currency is going to have a securities market big enough to support global savings and displace the dollar as U.S. reserve currency? Right now, extremely low. The closest, of course, I mentioned the euro, but even the euro, that's not a bond market. There is no European-wide bond market guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the entire European monetary zone. It doesn't exist. You have German bonds, Italian bonds, Spanish bonds, French bonds, yeah, but even that is only a slice of the euro. I said the euro is 29%. Well, yeah, but you got to break it into all these different countries. So there's nothing like the US dollar. Chinese yuan, no way. Russian ruble, no way. So what's special about the US government bond market? Well, it's not just, first of all, you have to have bonds in all maturities, 30-day bills, 2-year notes, 5-year notes, 7-year notes, 10-year notes, 20-year notes, 30-year bonds, all across different maturities. You need a dealer network. In the U.S., we have primary dealers who basically underwrite auctions of U.S. Treasury securities. You need settlement and clearance, when issue trading, futures, options, repos, reverse repos, relations with the central bank, settlement, clearance, et cetera. And the biggest one is the rule of law. So you need all of that. It's a huge infrastructure. It would take at least 10 years to build if you started today, and no one has anything like it. China doesn't even come close. And by the way, with China and Russia, the one thing they're missing, and this would be true in a lot of parts of the world, is the rule of law. Even if you had the infrastructure I just described, which is not easy and would take 10 years or longer to build. By the way, the U.S. started building this in 1791. I mean, Alexander Hamilton invented the U.S. government securities market. It's been going strong ever since. So we've been doing this for 230 years. But China lacks the rule of law, not even close to what I'm describing. So it's not going to be very easy to overthrow the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency.